Hey guys, this is Joe748, and I am here with our trusty co-host, SD1. SD1, how you doing?
First, Joe, I'd like to say thank you for saying that I'm trusted. I don't take that lightly, especially coming from you, which makes me just very happy. Living the dream, Joe. Living the dream.
Well, you guys can't see it, but SD1 has this really sweet looking podcast set up now, which I'm super jealous of. He's got this badass, like huge blacked out Ace and Jack poster in it's not even a poster, it's like full on painting or something.
Canvas. Ace King.
Yeah,
canvas.
Yeah, it's really sharp looking. So I need to step up my game, even though no one's even watching this, but you guys are all just listening, but it's just for our own vibes. So I need to step up my game. So speaking of trusty, we have our trusty AP Paradigm with us as our guest today. Paradigm, how's it going?
Going pretty well. How about you guys?
Good. Excited to get into your AP journey and how you feel about everything going from part-time to full-time, ditching your job, more or less.
Yeah.
And if it's a good idea for you, if you should do that, if you should not do that. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your whole origin story about how you even got into blackjack card counting?
I never even actually really planned on getting into this. I kind of fell into it. I was on a guy's trip to Atlantic City back in 2019, and wasn't an uncommon thing for us to do. A bunch of us just it was a place to get together. Of all places, Atlantic City is just the sun-kissed capital of the country right there. But I don't know, for some reason it was fun, and we'd set aside, $100, $200 a day, play just fun money, play some craps, play some blackjack. I didn't know anything about blackjack at the time, really. One of the trips before, my buddy of mine was saying that there was this thing called basic strategy when he was playing, and shows me this chart, of course, on his phone, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, no one in their right mind is ever going to memorize all of this. This is ridiculous. So I sat down, I memorized, aces and eights, the easiest thing you could, and went about it. And on that trip, I just felt like an idiot. Even the dealer was looking at me with that kind of shameful look of like, oh, you poor soul, what are you doing here? So I was embarrassed. I felt stupid, we went up to the room and everyone's having drinks and just chilling, and I'm on my phone just angry, looking up this basic strategy thing. And at that time found BJA's charts at the time, and signed up for the mini course thing when it was like, you want to learn card counting or whatever it was back then. And I was like, no, I don't want that. I just want to lose less. That's all. So I got the mini course out and I downloaded this Blackjack strategy app back then on Android. I don't think they make it anymore. It wasn't supported. But I had the same kind of stereotypes a lot of people do, where it's illegal, they're going to break your kneecaps, you have to memorize every card. And as I started learning a little bit, I was like, well, hell, I can do all that. Just +1, -1, I got that. It was more of a mental exercise for me at the time. But rather than actually making money, even for probably, 6 to 12 months after that, starting to learn. Went home, continued practicing after that, watched the mini course, and, I kind of obsessively got into all of the stuff as all of us do when they find this new thing. The podcasts, the videos, the blogs, anything you find online. And I was absorbing all the free content BJA had, really. There was no stopping me. And I heard that freaking the thing you heard before this, the dun 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 dun, the little intro thing in my sleep. Of course, it was on 1.5x speed, so of course I heard it much faster than that. Yeah, exactly. So read a ton of books, still have quite the collection, constantly growing, and yeah, that's kind of where I got started on everything.
When did you start your AP journey? How long ago?
That trip would have been November of 2019. I wouldn't say I started it too much then. Of course, it was just all the free stuff where you're absorbing all of that. But February of that year, I went to, and of course, February of 2020 at that time, that was a whole different world than it is now. And before then, that's when we were getting into all the COVID times. So couldn't really get out there, do too much. I was just learning online. But I had a trip, as a lot of people probably remember, February 2020, we didn't really have any of the restrictions in the US yet. That was all overseas and starting to get into here. and I had a conference actually booked in Vegas, and I'm like, all right, cool. Finally, I test all this stuff I've been working on here, and I had a room paid for at Treasure Island, of course, the wonderful TI. And the one night after the conference, sat down, I'm like, all right, let's do this. And the count rose. I'm like, I got this. And then I realized I have no idea how much I'm supposed to bet when this happens. So the counting I felt comfortable with, but then I realized I don't know what I'm doing betting wise. So it became a thing where I need pro betting software and some other stuff, and joined BJA that night.
Wait, let's take a step back. So how much did you bet when you didn't know what to bet?
I was just doing table minimum. Once I realized that, I stopped playing.
Oh, so you didn't even like take a shot and raise your bet at all?
Nope.
Wow, you are a cautious man. I like it.
Absolutely. There's another guy that has done a podcast. I've told him, I'm cautious, but you're more cautious.
They still backed him off. Treasure
I
Island
know.
post card counter seen spreading table min to table min, backed off immediately.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past him, but yeah. You just looked the part.
So what was that like going through training and taking this on during COVID? I mean, I think a lot of people during those days of heavy drinking and being locked down found things to read, things to do, video games to play. So kind of a bonus, but then there's like obviously challenges with that too. So talk about that. Like what did that do to start your career during COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I ordered a bunch of cards off Amazon, and that was right around the time where you had lockdowns and everything started happening too, where you were told basically to only leave if you had to, masks, all the different things. So training was all at home. I don't really think it changed things too much though, honestly, because other than going out to the casino and applying what you're learning until you're ready, you can't go out there anyways. And I wasn't, and I knew that. So I wasn't having any intention to go out there and just light money on fire for no reason.
Back to the whole you being cautious thing. So that's what I would actually say. For a lot of people, it would have been a real asset to happen during COVID.
Yeah.
Specifically because they couldn't go out and do something stupid and play before they were ready.
Yeah.
But again, Mr. Cautious, which I like, I applaud. Don't burn your money, kids. It's not worth it. Make sure you're tested out. Go to a boot camp. Be ready. Trust me on that.
How did your whole test out thing go and everything at the boot camp?
Boot camp was a whole other experience. I mean, obviously for one, because that was right in COVID. So that was, I think Colin had said they had to cancel, one or two boot camps because of all the moving targets basically Nevada was doing at the time. It was bizarre, because I had been to Vegas once before, not a bunch of times, and once or twice actually before that. And I mean, they had no shows. The casinos had been shut down. They just opened up again in June. And I went in July of 2020. And it was something. It's weird when you walk in, you recognize all these voices. You know what they sound like, and you hear them across the room, but you can't put the face. So it's a very unique thing that I wasn't particularly used to. But you have a little bit of imposter syndrome going in, of course, even if you feel like you know your stuff, because almost like a little bit of a celebrity type thing of sorts, which I think a lot of people can relate to when they run into that. The test out itself, I think I did what a lot of people do probably, which is I built it up to this very big thing in my head. And so when it comes time to actually apply all your stuff, you're so in your head that Colin did my test out, and I was very slow. You could see he was being very patient with me because I was like, just, you get the jitters like you always do when you first start out of the sweaty palms, the cold hands, the extremities, all the stuff when you first get those feelings. And I got all the cash out things, but now I'd lose the count. I was so focused on the little tricks you guys were trying to play. So ultimately, I wouldn't say it went well. It didn't go awful. I felt like I passed enough for where I was comfortable, where I was at with my game, but I knew there was a lot of stuff that shined a light on things, that there was more work to do, but it was not there yet.
Okay, that's a good point. Because sometimes when we do the test outs, we'll kind of give an assessment afterwards and, point out the weak spots. But so when you went home after that point, what did you do to get your game to kind of fix those, weaker points?
Yeah. So a lot of it was getting distracted, for one. So I came up with some different little tricks of holding the count. If, say, there's a break in play, or there's a chip fill, or someone comes up and they're talking, they're taking forever. So I looked up a few different things of like, there was a post on the forums a while ago about something called the PEG system, which is a memory technique where you basically assign an image to a number. So like for 1, I pictured like one of those stupid athletic, like foam one hands at an athletic event. Like 2 was a pair of shoes, 3 was a trident, 4 was like a car. So if it was a running positive 4 plus 4, I would picture a green car just driving around on the felt, because we're a little more programmed to memorize that imagery rather than just the number. The more violent, the more graphic you can make it, you can involve other senses, even better. And if, say, it was negative, of course, then it was red, just assigned a color. So that was one thing I did. The other thing is kind of a trick with counting tables using your hands in your pockets, of course, whether it be 1 or 2. I was trying to think of how can you hold the count on one hand more than just 5 or 10. And I realized something called segmentation, where you can basically put your thumb to the tip of your finger, or your pointer finger. So you can do 1 through 10, obviously, in one hand if you figure out. I'm sure listeners are sharp enough to figure that out on their own. But if you put your thumb to your pointer finger, that would be 11. And then you go down each knuckle, 12, 13, 14, start on the middle finger and all the way down until you start closing your fingers. And ultimately, I think you get to 30 or whatever it adds up to. I haven't done it in a long time. But yeah, so those are ways I figured out to hold the count and keep myself from getting a little too distracted by things going on around me if I needed to lean on something.
So early on, and I don't think there's anything wrong with, especially like when your game is developing, being able to hold a conversation at the table and using your hands to hold accounts while you're having that conversation. The more automated you get, the less you have to do it. But I actually have a similar story. I'm going to date myself, and it's hilarious. I don't know if anybody else is going to even know this, but I was taught something in 2nd grade by a teacher, Mrs. Go, and it's called Chisholm Bop. You guys ever heard of that?
I have not.
So it's a counting system with your fingers, and it involves putting them down, hitting your palm, lifting, and you can get a ton of numbers out of one hand. And I would do that on my thigh because I kind of remembered it. And then I looked it up and I was like, yeah, I remember this from 2nd grade.
Nice.
So I don't think she's with us anymore, but you helped my AP career, Miss Go, 2nd grade teacher. Good stuff. Look it up, kids. Chisholm Bop. Use it.
So once you felt confident enough to get back out there, what did that look like for you? Because you were still working full time.
Yeah, so I was working full time. Travel wasn't a huge thing. I was in the medical field, so a lot of my things you can't just call off. There was a lot of people depending on me specifically, so that was not an option. So travel was quite difficult. So as a result, you start digging into how do you fit it into your life. Is it something where you hit your locals and keep a real low spread? And I know everyone wants that. I looked at a forum post today where people are always looking for that magic bullet of how do I spread, make money, but not get kicked out. Also, can I play rated and get them to give me free things?
Right.
And wouldn't we all love that? The silver bullet that there's never any guarantees with any of that. And I knew that. So for a while it was not test spreads, but once I felt comfortable where I got myself a lot better to where I was at, felt like I was consistent on everything. And I was pretty good on where I was at that point. I've gotten quite rusty since then, as SD1 is aware. We were chatting about the one time. But they played local for a little while with a spread that I didn't think they would care about. I'm trying to think of what it was back then. I think I maxed out at, I think they had $5 or $10 tables back then. I think I maxed out at like 2 by 150 or 200. I can't remember. But I started looking for other opportunities, looked for other places, and ended up finding a place that was travel distance that I drove out to for a different play at the time, which has since dried up quite a bit.
How do they respond to that, Max?
I didn't really have any issues, honestly. I was surprised. It was not something that really got any attention other than the angry ploppies, which is, par for the course of yelling at you for going in and out and that kind of thing, which this was a number of years ago where I was very green and you're doing the typical thing that you're trying to maximize every little thing. You look robotic, you're still getting the art of it down. And so I'm still sitting at the table and sitting out hands, like the stuff that's super obvious that I would never do or recommend someone else do it. But otherwise, it was surprisingly well tolerated.
Did you have any kind of hour limit or something that you stuck to try to stay under the radar, or was it just getting as many hours in as you could locally, anytime you could?
Yeah, it was more personal constraints because of work and getting home, sleep, relationship stuff at home, friend things, the actual things in my own personal life that were more of the constraints than usually I would say it was no more than like 2 to 3 hours at a time.
So this just popped in my head. We kind of already talked about COVID and what was going on with that, but did you network at all via like the forums? Did you use those during that time?
Oh yeah. Yeah, networking was huge for me. Still is.
What part did that play? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so networking prior to boot camp was pretty limited for obvious reasons because I was still in the middle of all that. But I met up with two APs in my area through the forums, and it was meant to be just one, but he had already met the other guy, so met up with them. But had the other one went to the other because there was 2 July boot camps that year, trying to fit the whole year's stuff into things. But the boot camp especially was a big jumping off point as far as networking goes. I still talk to and work with one or two people, at least, I mean, definitely two, but people from that boot camp still this day, whether it be in sports, which is one big part of what I do these days, and some other stuff as well. But that, and then after the boot camp, a few years later, we've had these different meetups that have popped up, of course, as a lot of people know, and I've been fortunate to be able to help with some of the earlier ones as far as helping coordinate some of the stuff. But another BJA member, Fateful, would run them and kind of coordinated everything, and I just kind of helped him organize. And then, of course, this past year we just did, or just this year rather, we just did the Midwest meetup.
How many years were you part-time before you decided to make the jump?
Well, what? That was February 2020 if we're counting official start. So almost 4 years.
And then there was just a certain point where you were like, why don't I just ditch? Because I'm sure you've had a lot of time investment into your career being in the medical field. I'm sure it's a lot of years and money and everything.
A lot of school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like why did you just transition?
Yeah, so it wasn't necessarily with that in mind, to be honest with you. It was something where my income from Advantage Play was rivaling my day job. It was pretty close, if not more in some cases, depending on the month, of course, as you all know, is super volatile sometimes. But the job I was in specifically, it was a corporate environment. I was just tired of how some of it was going. I was getting a little burnout and made a decision to leave that. And I was like, there's some other things I can do with this career. There's a lot of different paths I can take. But for now, I'm just going to this was November. I'm going to take the end of the year off and see how I feel and go from there. And I've always kind of talked with my buddy from my boot camp. He used to say, "What's your number?" And I was like, "What do you mean, what's my number?" He goes, "Your number. What? How much would you have to make from this to decide to do this full time?" And I was like, "I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times, something like that, where you're got a little bit of a buffer because I'm making twice my income now because of doing both of them. That makes sense, And ultimately, when I did this and kind of made the jump, I was like, let's just do it as a sabbatical. We'll call it a sabbatical. We won't say it's a full thing. And I planned by February get this other thing with my career up and running. I was planning to own my own business with that. And I had a very good start to the year. Let's put it that way, where I did not have the financial pressure to rush that. So AP started off very well for me the beginning of this year. And that's kind of been what I've been doing ever since, and starting to look at bringing the career back in as more of a part-time thing and just switching it the other way around, actually.
Yeah, because I mean, we have talked on a personal level before, and yeah, you had some burnout with your normal job, whatever you want to call it, your career path that you picked and went to school for. But at the same time, you still like love it. Like
Oh, yeah.
you got into it for a reason. You didn't just like go chase the money in the medical world. You actually do enjoy a lot of aspects of it. So thinking about that and what you just said, what role do you think AP is going to play in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
That's a very good question. I think that there's going to be changes. What those changes are going to look like, who knows? Casino-wise, whether it be casinos, sports, some other new thing that may pop up in that time that we don't even know is even a thing yet at this time. But things are going to change. That's the one thing we do know, and you got to adapt. I think AI is probably going to become more of a thing. Whether that's going to be, are they going to plug some visual recognition thing? Who knows? They were saying facial rec was going to be way better, and it took how many more years after that before it's actually starting to be good now. But you could have some things where AI plugs in and is picking off things a little bit more quickly, more efficiently. Could they get rid of surveillance operatives altogether and have AI watching tables and watching for patterns and inputs? Who knows? You could have a sensor under the table, but you think of it every time you do something like that. Change is opportunity. New is opportunity. So obviously, I'm sure a lot of people have watched Inside the Edge, where he talked about the RFID chip underneath the table Hard Rock used way back when. And he learned, if you had it under the table in your pants, you set the sensor off, and they were really relying on that technology. It wasn't a bad technology necessarily, but I think similar things are always going to be available, and you just have to learn how to adapt to new opportunities.
Yeah, I've said this before. The better tech gets, the more reliant casinos and other industries, to be fair, are going to become on it. And maybe even more so in the casino world. And I've mentioned this before too, like surveillance departments aren't particularly loved. So if they really did go to an all AI kind of a situation, I almost promise you there'll be opportunity there still. But aside from all that and like the changes in the casino world, how do you personally see yourself in AP? Like, is this something that you might pick up, put down, or is to kind of always be a part, or how do you see it personally playing in your life?
I think I foresee it pretty much always kind of playing a role. I mean, the beauty of it is you always can pick it up and set it down. For the foreseeable future, it's something that is not burning me out, which is helpful. That being said, it can be a grind, so I can see, and I've seen it happen in other APs where it can really take its toll on you. But for me, I see it being there. What it's going to look like, I think, really depends on the circumstances of what edges are available. But I always try to adapt and roll with the punches, because otherwise you don't have an income stream.
I want to hear some of your stories, but first, before we get to those, I was just curious, like, being a full-time AP now, is there anything about your previous career that you miss that you don't have anymore right now as a full-time AP?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't miss the corporate crap. I don't miss because I was a lead in what I was doing at the time when I left. And I hate doing all the HR crap and trying to mitigate all the conflict and stuff. And it's funny, I was just talking to an AP the other day who was having to do a team thing like that. I was like, hey, I know that. I can help with that. I don't miss that, but I do miss a lot of the actual medical part of it, and not the red tape, the corporate stuff, the money conversations of whether certain things aren't in the cards because of financial constraints. That has never been an issue for me. It was never the part of it. I love puzzles. Probably part of the reason I got into AP and where they overlap quite a bit. You're always finding something new that you have to figure out. And in this, same thing. There's always new circumstances that come up. You keep your eyes open, you find new other things, and you go, oh, well, that's funny. And definitely miss it. But, like they say in science, a lot of the great discoveries in history are not like the movies where someone goes, Eureka, I found it. It's always, that's funny. And it's usually how most great discoveries are made too. Same kind of thing.
That's true.
Can you tell us about that? You were talking about your first OSN scare.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, early in the days, you hear whispers that, people have ways of getting information for you from OSN. You don't necessarily know how or anything, but if you're in there, you can find something. And I don't think he's active anymore, but one of the guys from my boot camp from back when I was on Discord, and I just got this DM out of nowhere, and it's this picture. He goes, I'm not good with names, I'm good with faces. Is this you? And I went, oh God, is it? And I'm staring at this picture, and I'm staring at this picture. And I had to stare for a long time to realize, I don't have that shirt. So no, that's not me. But it was really close. So, I mean, it goes to show you why it's so easy for some of these surveillance guys, these casino operatives, to just kick you out saying you're this one person, when hell, I'm looking at a picture going, hell, I don't know if that's me, let alone someone else determining that.
Doppelgangers, they're out there.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I don't know if Joe has one. I just don't believe there's somebody that good looking out there other than him. But I'm just saying.
I was talking to someone recently, and it was a former boot camper, and he said, "Hey, do you know if you could figure out, ask your surveillance person if there's anyone that like looks like me in the area that I'm playing at, because I'm getting like flyer left and right, like it's just like really fast." And I was like, "What do you mean, under 40-year-old white male?" Yeah, there's plenty of those around where you're at right now.
That's so true.
And what about this mugging attempt?
That was a story I chatted with him ahead of time, see if he cared if I shared his handle on this. But I'd gone to a market up near me to cash some sports tickets at the time. This was 2 years ago now, something like that. And Burning Down the House was in town. We had met before. We had chatted some, and I said, "Hey, you know what? If you get some time, you want to grab some lunch, let me know. If not, no hard feelings. You got to work. You got to do your thing. That is what it is." So he's like, "Yeah, sure. Well, don't worry." So I texted him when I finished up with what I was doing. I said, "So how you looking? How's everything looking on this? You gonna be able to, or you got to get the hours? I got to head back if not, And he calls me instead of texting back. He goes, "I may have a problem." And I said, "Oh?" He goes, "Not with I'm like, "Okay, so he's still in the casino. He's not going to say what he's doing." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "So there's a guy that came in here where I'm playing, and he just sat at the slot machine, and he's pretending to play. He's been there for about half an hour while I'm slinging, large denomination chips around here. And he's been watching very closely. And not long after I saw him get on his phone, another guy came and he starts playing on his slot machine. And then there's another guy by the exit of the room, just kind of standing there playing on his phone. And he goes, I think I'm going to get mugged." I said, "Yeah," knowing where he was at, I was like, "Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is not looking very good for you. I'm not usually in the realm of you talking to security before they talk to you, but in this case, I think you probably should involve security. But I'll start heading over there, and we'll see what we can do." So he's like, "Yeah, meet up with me in the restroom there." So I said, "Well, we'll go in separately. We'll leave separately. If you want me to carry some of your bankroll out, so if God forbid you do get mugged, they're not going to get it all off you, and they won't know me." So we meet up in the bathroom. He hands me like $20,000 in cash, chips, and bear in mind we'd met once or twice before. We'd been in contact before, but just so it shows you the value of your reputation, and that's one of the currencies in this thing is time, money, and reputation. So fortunately, by the time I got there, security was mostly involved. I walked kind of your zigzag through all the slots on the way out, and make sure I'm not getting followed on the way out too. I did see one of the guys not too far from there though too. So, but anyways, we coordinated through the phone afterwards and met up at this restaurant. And it was this restaurant that was kind of a shady corner where we're at, like literally shady, like dark in the corner. And there was this little old couple nearby that it probably looked like it was going to be a drug deal going down. There's no one else in the restaurant. I'm like, I don't want this to look like what this is going to look like. I slide this at I can't remember if it was like envelope or how I slid everything across the table back over, and I said, "Thanks for a great time last night." And the look of disappointment on this woman's face was just palpable. They left shortly after, but I guess the moral of the story is always be aware of your surroundings, man. Because if he hadn't noticed that, he very easily could have had someone try to jump him on the way out on the parking garage. But fortunately, everything worked out well.
The In-N-Out has had quite a bit of cash, especially in the church team days, passed underneath tables.
Yep.
So brightly lit, though, not a shady corner.
Yeah, it did not look like the most reputable place to be doing that, but it was okay. It served its purpose.
So you didn't want it to look like a drug deal. So the first thought in your head was, I'm going to make this funny and make it sound like male prostitution.
You know what? You got to roll with your punches, right?
Yeah. Got it. What did Vernon say when you said that?
It probably wouldn't be appropriate to share here, but his sense of humor. But yeah, he rolled with the punches too, and it amplified the reaction from the woman. Let's put it that way.
Nice.
We'll have that on our BJA After Hours podcast.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I don't know if he wants me to share that, so I'll keep that under wraps.
Going back to getting into all this on playing blackjack and all, because you had consumed so much of the material ahead of time, what were you surprised about in person when you started playing that you kind of weren't prepared for?
How hated you can feel. I think that was the big one. Like I when I started reading like Colin's book and a lot of the forum posts and everything when I was before I actually got out there, conflict is not something that is a strong point of mine, but I don't necessarily shy away from it either. Like I can deal with it, but I'm not one that exactly goes seeking it out either. And by nature, part of me is a little bit of a people pleaser, so that's not a good quality if you're trying to stand your ground in that kind of scenario. And if nothing else, just the level of hate you can get from the ploppies at the table, of just how much they want you to fail when you're not playing the way they want you to play. I think was the biggest surprise to me. I was like, are you serious right now? I'm playing over here. You're playing over there. Why are you so angry at me that you're like wishing locusts upon my family? What is happening here?
You're playing against the team, man. It's a
I
team
know.
sport. Don't you know that?
Oh, yeah. I know. Hell, in those early days, I always chose the first seat just for that reason, just so I didn't have to deal with it. It also helped that you didn't have to do the lean. You could see straight across the table at the at the discard, not have to do the tilt or look as obvious.
Yeah, I love playing first base.
What kinds of stuff were they mad at you about?
Oh, it's just the typical stuff, hitting your soft 18 or jumping in and out or getting up and down or changing your bet or going one hands to two hands or back and forth. Any way that they thought you shouldn't play. And sometimes things that there's no rhyme or reason. It was some superstition thing they'd come up with. It. I wish I had some good examples on that one. But the nice thing, though, I did forget about this, actually. The nice thing is back in those days, a lot of those tables still had the plexiglass dividers at your seat. So I could actually go, what? Huh? And just really egg them on because I couldn't hear them.
And that also kept, because that kept the amount of players that could play at the table too. So on one hand, it made it difficult to sometimes get a seat, but other times it was good because you knew you were only going to be playing with a couple people, which I don't even love that, but restricting it when you wanted to get hours in was kind of nice.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to say, a lot of the times when you start betting bigger, you get less and less of that, but not always. Still, I remember I was playing at St. Louis next to Nelly, and he got kind of pissed because I kept sitting out on the double deck when it went really negative. It's like we're all betting huge, but it still is just like an annoyance for him.
Yep. Some things don't change no matter who you are, I guess.
Did he actually say anything to you, or was it just like expressions and sighs?
No. He was just rolling his eyes, just kind of annoyed at first, but eventually he turned around when I noticed I wasn't a complete idiot, I guess.
And then Joe split tens.
Oh, God, yeah. I don't remember that, but I wouldn't put it past me.
Are there any other stories that you want to talk about?
The big gulp story was, did you ever see Dumb and Dumber? I assume you've had, but where the scene where Jim Carrey comes out of the gas station and walks up to the kids by the truck. He goes, "Oh, big gulps, eh? Well, see you later."
Yeah.
Well, it was a moment at my boot camp where one of the pros there, I was talking about someone that was very prominent in the community. He's like, "Well, he's here. Do you want to meet him?" I was like, sure. And, at that stage of your career, you don't know what you don't know. You have nothing to offer, especially to someone that you already are revering in such a high light. And so he's like, "Hey, such and such, this is Paradigm, blah, 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 blah." And then he walks away. And it felt exactly like that scene. I was like, "Oh, big gulps, eh? Well, see you later." Because I had no idea what I had to contribute to the conversation there, how to make the small talk. And, generally I can fill the silence if I need to. I obviously can be sociable, but and that one, I'm not sure if it was just more of an intimidation factor or being that new and that unfamiliar surroundings for the most part, but that's all that was. Yeah.
So you definitely have seen a lot of positives in giving back to the community. Like you said, the meetups, you were helping like in the early days before BJA started organizing them, and I reached out to you and you were more than willing to lead up the Midwest meetup and did that with me this year. And now you're the captain moving forward until you tell me to piss off and get somebody else. So you're going to be doing it annually. Why do you think you feel that pull to help others, and how has that helped you?
Yeah. So, in the early days, you don't have much to give back. And I think that's what a lot of newbies worry about when they're starting out. It's like, well, how do I network? I have nothing to give. I'm still learning. Like, well, you don't now, but like you might find something that you don't know how to take advantage of at some point, whether it be a specific promotion or why is this game so good here or, whatever else it comes up. So networking is always valuable. And while it can be a double-edged sword, it's like Munchkin will say in some of the Gambling with the Edges of like, you don't want to be on a super valuable play of some kind. Like someone goes, oh, hey, they're on that. Why are they on that? You don't want that necessarily, but I think the pros significantly outweigh any cons when it comes to networking. I enjoy organizing it to a point. I mean, obviously, there's the red tape and all the herding cats aspect of it that is definitely not enjoyable. But once you get everyone in that room and get them talking and everything, like, it's such a great time. It really is. And I've always enjoyed giving back in that way and networking just because we all start somewhere, whether we're 5 years into this, 10 years into this, or just, we just registered today. It is what it is. We all started at some point. You always got to start at the ground and work your way up. And I don't mind giving back to that because I was there too. And I think part of it is also I always have loved teaching in my field too. So I don't mind teaching if it's something, obviously I'm not going to give away the farm or give away the honey hole or something along those lines, of course. You never want anyone doing that. But if it's something where it's mutually beneficial, that kind of thing, yeah, sure, let's roll. But if you're willing to give out more than you take in, especially in the earlier phases, I find a lot of times, and you keep things to yourself, and actually you exercise discretion in the ultimate form the way you should, it's quite easily to make friends in the space.
Let's go back really quick to you going full time. Was there much of an adjustment for you doing that? I mean, I don't know the circumstances of you leaving your quote real job, but when you did that, like, how was that adjustment? Was there fear there? You mentioned earlier that something happened really good at the beginning of this year that kind of eased some tension or whatever, but yeah, what went on with that?
Yeah, so I mean, I had a lot of hesitation of going into it, and like I said, I wasn't playing on it for being a long time anyway, so it wasn't a ton of reservation. But I have emergency funds. Like, I'm not stupid. As you said, cautious. I always have things set up ahead of time of if this doesn't work, what's the next step? You always have to have your backup plan. I'm definitely not the most spontaneous person in the world. But there was a sports adjacent angle, not necessarily sports betting directly, that I hit my biggest single win of my AP career in the first quarter of this year. And so it was nice when a lot of that, plus a lot of things just swinging my way in various aspects of AP, just, when you're in that God mode and it feels like everything goes your way and, everything you touch turns to gold versus the other form where everything you touch turns to dust, as we all are very familiar with. I fortunately had the gold version at the start of the year, so it gave me a nice little buffer of, okay, I can breathe a little bit. I can start here. I don't have to be sweating the money as much because I've known a number of full timers over the years where I can see the toll those swings can take on you when you're betting at those stakes and how it can impact your mood, your emotions, and how difficult it can be to separate the two in some instances.
What would you tell some APs that are thinking about going full time? And I'm asking this specifically because a lot of times in the forums, I get it. Like, it sounds sexy to be a full time AP. When people attend boot camp, I think like it's always funny because this topic comes up and every one of us pros just goes, "Don't do it."
Nope.
But yeah, you have young guys that and girls that just think like, "Oh yeah, living this life would be great and making all the money and control the time." And there are a lot of benefits to it, of
Oh,
course.
absolutely. Yeah.
But what advice would you give to somebody thinking about it?
Yeah. I mean, when you start out, it's a lot of that. I think people more so, for one, it's the same thing of you don't know what you don't know. And you glamorize the lifestyle of I'm my own boss. I can do whatever I want. I can go wherever I want. And then reality is very harsh. It's a grind, just like any other job. And like you said, there's definitely pros and cons. There's definitely a lot of benefits too. But it can impact your social relationships sometimes, especially on a downswing, if where you might be a little snippier. If someone asks you a question and normally you're a little more even keel of a personality. On a social dynamic, you got that. Financially, of course, make sure you're set up in a way that if you're deciding to do that, don't be trying to go out there with your $2,000 and be like, I'm going to spread 1 by 20 and I'm going to make it. And you're like, no, be realistic, Like, just be realistic about what you're actually planning to do, because if it fails, make sure your liabilities and your debts and everything that your responsibilities are taken care of. Because if you're young, you're 21, you don't have a lot of debt, you don't have a lot. There's a lot more leeway there. If you're married, you got kids, you got a mortgage, you got a car payment, you got all these other responsibilities. There's a lot of risk that comes with it too. It's an investment, just like anything with math. There's standard deviation and everything else too. And if you can't survive the long run, you're never going to get to it. So it doesn't matter if you have an edge if you can't survive the swings.
Bankroll matters a lot. So I've talked about this before. A lot of us have, that came from corporate life. But with corporate life, you also have your insurance, your 401ks, paid time off. There's no such thing as an AP. So how much did that weigh into making the decision? So it's one thing to say, and I had a similar circumstance. I started looking, I played part-time, a lot of full-time hours, but as a part-time AP because I kept my full-time job. And I started seeing exactly what you said. Like, I'm making as much, if not more, than my regular job. What if I gave 100% of my attention to this? What would happen? But those other things weigh into it. So as a cautious, calculated person, because those have big value, what would you say in talking through that in your own brain?
Oh, you got to bake it into the math. Yeah. When you're doing that, pros and cons of do you stay in it or leave it? One, obviously, account for the non-financial stuff. Like, are you like miserable in what you're doing? Like, take that into account too, of course, but maybe it's worth sticking in it long enough to get a bankroll where if you're going to make a go at it, do that first. Get a little pain for that first. But yeah, I ended up much like if anyone that's an independent contractor or a professional gambler, I started looking at prices of what are insurance going to be in the marketplace, how much I'm going to be paying out of pocket. Eye rolling numbers in a lot of cases, but you start finding some benefits though too, which I've done a lot of reading on finance before, but I never really looked into it as an independent contractor viewpoint before. And you start finding things like, oh, there's a solo 401k and I can contribute an employer contribution up to like 69 grand. Okay, so there's that. That's great. You got your self-employment tax, but again, you start balancing things out, and then you got your taxes, which that's a whole other conversation for another time. But some states are nicer than others. I'm not in one that is super kind to recreational gamblers. So when it comes to that, be prepared to defend yourself with your documentation and everything, especially if you have a W-2 job at the same time. So I looked at roughly how much do those benefits are they worth, and am I going to make enough with that, or even doing that as a part-time gig on the side that is at least apples to apples or better. And that was kind of where I went.
Let me give you a hypothetical. I'm kind of framing this for the person who's listening who's trying to debate whether or not they should go full-time or stay part-time. But let's say your AP salary kind of changed to where it was matching what you used to make, or even like half of what it used to make. Would you go back to your original career? Like, what's that line for you where it'd be like, okay, this isn't worth it anymore. I want to just go back to my stable paycheck?
No, it's a good question, and it's one that's been creeping up a little bit because as you always have to regress to the mean, and that lovely mode I started the year with, well, I'm having that everything turns to dust the past 2 to 3 weeks of just nothing but red on the spreadsheet and just straight down. So that's a very real question right now, but I don't foresee me going back necessarily to a corporate thing. I think this new side business I'm planning with the career is probably more of my plan at the moment. At the very least, I may open a practice in my field where I can be an owner and kind of make my own hours, hire others if I have the capital. You can use the capital in other ways too, of course. And that could be one way it looks. still figuring out how that might look down the road if I want to get back in the field. What's that look like? The plan right now of the part-time side business is I always joke, the for now plan, not the forever plan. So that is what the current plan is. But if it takes a big dip, it's probably going to be going into the sabbatical. I kind of had the thought of, okay, well, if this isn't where I want it to be and it's not scaling with the time I'm putting in now that has my full attention, maybe I shift the ratio. Or say if it's sports and there's a season I do more in, then okay, now it's off season. I shift more of my time towards this and less towards that. I view it less as a black and white thing and more of a gradient of how much do I slide the slider along the scale to one versus the other. And being the owner of both businesses, I have the flexibility of dictating that for myself.
Happy you went full time?
Yeah, I'm actually enjoying it a lot. The past 2-3 weeks, I'm starting to have a slightly different answer. But
I thought you were going to say 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
No. The past 2 to 3 weeks, whereas you just red is starting not to be my favorite color anymore.
Living that life, not being able to see green or red really helps out.
Yeah, I guess it does.
That's the secret. That's why you're so even keel.
Just put your spreadsheet, everything that's in red, put it in Comic Sans. It make it look happy.
Yeah, all happy.
Yeah.
Paradigm, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for also serving the community, heading up the Midwest meetup. It went really well this year, so we really appreciate that. And guys, if you have questions of him, you can hit him up on the forums. And if you're interested in learning more about car counting, go to blackjackapprenticeship.com. And of course, we have our YouTube channel, and keep on listening to the podcast.